Good afternoon, everybody. It's a dog with you. We're in the kennel on a warm Monday, the 21st of August, 2017. It's good to be with you. Today we bring in a couple of my friends. They're on the town board of Seneca Falls, and they got a lot on their plate. Can you imagine? We bring in Greg Lazzaro, the town supervisor, and of course my friend Lou Ferrara, the deputy supervisor as well for the town board of Seneca Falls. We're going to talk about what's happening at the board level, and I'm sure this show is only 30 minutes long, so I'm sure they could probably speak for hours. Greg, good afternoon. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you, Harold.
And Lou, of course, always good to see you.
Nice to see you, Harold. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Well, let's get right to it. As you know, time is of the essence. We don't want to waste a lot of time on chit-chat, but give us an overview, Greg. What's going on? I know I always call it the elephant in the room. The Seneca Meadows issue is first and foremost always the discussing item that people in this town always are, I guess, connected to one way or the other, whether you're for it, whether you're against it, whether they should shut down tonight at 5, which we all know won't happen, or whether they should be extended, and it goes on and on. It's sort of like a soap opera, and I know you and Lou and your board and your attorney continually deal with issues. So give us an update on your mind. It doesn't appear that the opposition is going away. It appears that you just had a public meeting the other day at Miners Academy in front of the DEC. What's your reflections on where it stands right now with your situation and what you feel overall with the Seneca Meadows?
Well, we just had our Article 78 court hearing, and I believe we will prevail. Mm-hmm. The town of Seneca Falls will prevail on issue. The two attorneys gave their arguments, and I think based on their arguments, we will prevail in this on the suit that a local business has sued the town of Seneca Falls. I think that's a bad thing to do for a local business to stand up instead of working with the town board and resolving their differences that way. I think all along we've had a good process on how to dialogue with people. I think it's evolved. I think it's evolved very well. And I think even people who are on the opposite side of this equation would have to agree with me. And it's just by some of the things that, they've said over the last few days.
Right.
Doug Avery in his campaign statement announcing that he was going to run and thanking people, he talked about a transparent, open government. I believe we have had a transparent and open government. And a lot of people have mentioned that to me. Transparency is not talking to a person, a proponent of yours, but it's also talking to a opposing viewpoint. And I think we've allowed that in our many forums we've had, and allowed them in the petitioner side of the board meetings. I believe that, and someone might say that, well, sometimes you haven't allowed petitioners, but we all have to understand that those meetings are open meetings. They're not public meetings, and there's a distinct difference between them. And at an open meeting, sometimes we as a board need to get business done, and that's what we're there for, and we get business done. And a lot of the comments are repetitive from month to month to month. Right. But I think we've given ample time for those. I think we also set up a good process, and I was watching Josh Durso and Jackie Augustine on Josh's podcast last week, and I got a couple of quotes out of that. One of the things that Jackie Augustine said was, things are tense right now, and they are. What is needed is leadership. People need to know what is in bounds and what is out of bounds. We need to respect reasonable dialogue and don't allow nonsense. Well, I think I've always done that at my meetings, and I think those were good comments, and I think those have always been the parameters, and I state those parameters very clearly at my meetings, and then allow people to discuss the issues that they need to discuss. I was very happy when the administrative law judge opened the public hearings by stating emphatically, and Jackie Augustine mentioned this also at her meeting. She said there was a stenographer taking notes, good parameters set up by the administrative law judge, 3 minutes, no signs, same parameters that I have in my meetings. So I think that people are coming around to seeing that there is reasonable dialogue, You're not always going to agree, but I, as town supervisor,
Sure.
and I think Lou would back me up with this, is that we have to listen to all the people based upon a month of 1 month at each meeting. We're not just listening to people at the meeting.
Right.
We're listening to people through phone calls, through conversations on the streets, and we have to come up with a plan that's going to work for all the people. And I believe we're coming to that, and I believe it'll be a good plan.
Well, certainly based on what's happened recently, the decision by the board to put metal detectors in as people arrive, I think, was smart and cautious, and not saying that anybody would be over the board and ridiculous, but you never know what's going to happen. I think safety is a concern, and certainly with the volatility of such a hot issue, we'll go to Lou now. Lou, I think with the volatility of the issue, I think it's important that not only the board members be safe in their meetings, also the people in the meeting be safe as well, depending on what might happen or could happen. And I think it was a good move on the board's part.
Oh, absolutely, Harold. I mean, it's today's day and age. You can't even go into a school without being buzzed in. And there's security at the schools, airports, hospitals. It's a way of life. It's unfortunate that it's come to this, but that was a hard decision to make to come to that point. And there was a lot of thought put into it. And it was one that once we did it, we're kind of happy we did, because it was right around that time that the doctor incident in New York City happened where 3 people lost their lives.
Right.
It's just sad.
It is. Well, Lou Ferrara is my special guest, along with Greg Lazzaro. We're talking about the town board issues. You know, one thing I was thinking about, and then we'll go back to it, we talk about economic development. We talk about, making our town safe, clean, looking sharp, and we have a lot of history, as you know, with It's a Wonderful Life, and we have all kinds of things. People come to Seneca Falls, the National Women's Hall of Fame, countless things. The new one being built across the canal, phenomenal. Look like it's going underway very nicely. But I was sitting about thinking, I think Lou and myself and you were at Nice and Easy a few years ago, and I remember talking about, and I call it the Koch building, which is James Carr's now, and they're moving out to 414, and it dawned on me, and I was going to pose this to you, Lou, and to Greg for your comments. In my limited capacity of intelligence, which I admit, I often wondered when your son told me, I said, what's going to happen to this building? And your son's comment said, to go in there and bring it up to code and to do the necessary work necessary. It's such a huge structure. There's not a person in the world that would afford or bring the money in to do that. No. It's going to be such an astronomical figure because of the age of the building. Given that background, and correct me if I was wrong, it might have been your son that mentioned that to me, what's going to happen, and I'm thinking about this because I've been in Seneca Falls all my life, and a lot of people are questioning the same thing. What happens when James Carr's goes out to 414 in the building now that sits there? Is it not true that it's an historical building, number one? And number two, would we ever consider demolishing it, or what would happen to that building? It's just going to sit there? I mean, that's where I'm kind of going with the question.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the building itself, you'll see where a lot of masonry's it needs to be repointed. Bricks are falling out of it. Right. There's not a dry floor in the place. Yep. It may be historical. I don't really know for sure. I know it's in the historical district. Yeah. Talks have been swirling around that somebody would like to come in, but not at the scope it would cost there. Right. It would have to be demoed.
Okay, I'm just curious.
I don't believe that it could be salvaged.
I was just curious because I go by it every time, Greg, and it thought about it. What are we going to do when James Carr's moves and that building exists there? And it's a big structure. And your comments on it? I mean, it looks like what would the town look at of doing if? I mean, maybe you don't have the exact answer now, but in looking down the road, what would happen?
We have a local development corporation, economic development corporation. I think we can sit down. We have a lot of good people on that. We open up the meetings to the public. They are public meetings.
Sure.
And I think that at some point that's going to be high on the agenda to where it goes, and we could develop a plan. I haven't really given it much thought to what to do with that. I've heard that maybe someone would like to extend the Nice and Easy, make it in one area instead of
I see, both
the 2 blocks. What would they use the current building? it's an expensive venture.
Oh, yeah.
If someone came in with a creative plan, I'm sure that's what they would do, because you like to keep the history of the town. But is in the final analysis, is it going to cost too much and cost prohibitive? And those are the factors you've got to figure out. That specific location really hasn't been talked about, but I'm sure, as in any building,
right.
And we want to move forward, and we don't want to see any empty building spots.
Yeah.
And especially there on that corner.
And that's a huge structure.
Yep.
Big structure.
So
Big.
I'm sure we're going to find something to do with that, and we're going to have a lot of people talking about it, and we can come up with some creative things to do. Or as Lou said, perhaps it has to be demoed.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, because it's a beautiful building, but
yeah, time will tell. But it's funny, I go by there all the time, and all I think about, because I go by that, and on the way to work at Del Lago part-time, but I go by the James Cars location, and always clicks in. I know Greg and Lou are coming on next week. I got to ask them what the thought process might be involved, because that's a structure you just can't hide.
I've heard talk that people would like to develop it into another Gould like we have downtown. If there's a need, I don't know if a developer would come in and they'd say, yeah, we'd like to invest in it. I mean, have at it. I'd like to see that.
Interesting. Hey, guys, let's talk a little bit about, and it flashes back to Seneca Metals just briefly. I had people ask me to ask you both. With the budgetary situation going on, Greg, that you and Lou and the rest of the board are involved in as you prepare for yet another budget and then another budget, the monies coming in from Seneca Metals certainly are part of the budget process of incoming revenues. Correct me if I'm wrong. The question is being asked that what if Seneca Metals decides not to be here any longer, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 7 years from now? The monies that we're getting now on a yearly basis from Seneca Metals, the budgetary, would that be a crisis budgetary-wise, or are we cutting back or looking at budget and just spending only the amount of money we can afford to do the basic things? Guess where I'm going with this. How do you make up the balance they would give us? Is that something I'm sure you've thought about? I'm sure you and Lou and the board have looked at that. Where does that go? I mean, not that's going to happen tomorrow, but down the road, it could happen. And then where does that income, how does that flow into the budget? Because it wouldn't flow in the budget.
Well, if we lost that money today,
sure,
there'd be a budgetary crisis.
Okay.
We'd either have to raise taxes,
right,
about 250% at least, and that's on top of after 5 years, 6 years after dissolution.
Right.
The former town already had their taxes raised.
Okay.
Former village had their taxes lowered, but we do not want to raise taxes immensely. Sometimes taxes are raised minimally, and that's a good thing because you're providing good services.
Right.
But that $3.1 million that we received last year, and almost $45 million, I think the figure is, Lou, that we've received over the last 20 years, that has done so much for Seneca Falls. Seneca Falls is what it is today because of a lot of the money that Seneca Meadows has given us. The library. The library is utilized by a lot of people. There's a lot of people who are on the lower economic income scale in town here, and they use the library. They don't have computers, so they go there and utilize the services of a library. That building was built because of Seneca Meadows.
Sure.
Our rec center, which is renowned through Seneca County, it's the biggest rec center, has the most programs, and it's utilized in the summer. The programs they have in the summer, the baseball camps, the lacrosse camps, the programs they start in the winter, soccer, it's going to start, I think it's this week, the soccer camps, are a feeder program to our schools. That helps the whole community, and the whole community grows from it. The school system gets paid their energy bill. About $70,000 goes to the school system. That keeps taxes down on the school side of it. So they've helped us immensely, and those monies would leave us. And what would you do? Hope, and what I want to do is I want to start a good economic development plan over the next 2 years of my term, at least, and make sure that if Seneca Falls isn't getting the projects, they're going to be ancillary to Seneca Falls. we're having a new sewer line put in, and that's going to open up. That will open up opportunities for business growth up on the 318 corridor. The casino is already in. I'm hearing once that sewer's in, you're going to have a larger capacity for restaurants and new hotels up there. That'll bring the tourists in. And then we've got to look at tourism also as bringing those people into town. And tourism in the Finger Lakes, as opposed to what some people have said because of Seneca Meadows, has grown each year over the last 5 years. And so we continue to get the tourists here, but where do they stay? And they want more places to stay, because a lot of times on our big event weekends, such as Canal Fest and It's a Wonderful Life, you have people staying in Auburn,
I agree.
You have people staying in Geneva. We would like to bring them closer in here and have them stay in our town where they're utilizing our restaurants, our hotels, visiting our shops. The shops would open up.
Buying gas, stuff like that. Well, it's interesting because, Lou, and you can touch on this as well, then we'll take a commercial break. Certainly, I know that I watched a lot of the meetings on public TV there, and I noticed that you guys, when asked to spend money, I know you both, and the rest of the board, not just you two, look at a dim view relative to giving any money, increasing money and giving additional monies without really scrutinizing every dollar, because you're certainly aware of the fact that what if, and I think it's fair to say that not that you wouldn't take care of certain organizations or whatever you can do, but I guess it's looked at a much keener vision than it used to be.
Absolutely.
You have to look at every dollar you're spending.
Absolutely. We're looking at equipment purchases. Just Restvale Cemetery, they had an issue there with monuments were toppled with a storm, with trees. Last month's meeting, the board voted to allocate money, $4,000, I believe, to go in and help Kay Ireland and her group remove trees that are already down and that will come down and tear up the rest of the cemetery. So on one side, we're still working with groups as they come in. We look at it. On the other side, we're also trying to check our spending too. And there's a lot that's being done on our side to control that. Purchases that we've had on the books, and they say they're in the budget, and they want them because they're in the budget, we're looking at them.
I understand,
because it's not really a because it's in the budget, we're going to give it to you.
No, I agree.
We have to look at it.
And and I think it's fair, Greg, that you being the town supervisor, I think the taxpayer wants you to look at it very carefully, make a decision, a good decision, whether it's in favor or whether you can't afford to give the money. It's only fair.
Well, this year I've asked the department heads to look at their budgets and cut 10% out of their budgets from what it came in last year, what the final budget was. And they're looking at their budgets very closely. And they're coming up with some good cuts, and I think we'll be able to do. I feel confident that the budgets will be cut by 10%. Because and then we also have to look at our workers. What's a fair and equitable salary?
I understand.
And people always say, well, they work for me. I pay their salaries because I pay taxes. Well, in reality, we all work for one another.
Sure we do.
There was a gentleman who worked for Verizon once, and I have a Verizon phone. He says, well, I pay your salary because I work for the state of New York. I took out my phone and I said, and who pays your salary? So we really all work together, and we have to work hard. The people work hard in our town. We have some really good town workers. They keep up the streets. In the winter, they plow, and we're looking at some projects to help people, and some projects down. We really want to work on this. There's been flooding down in the Noble Road and Farron Road area. We're looking to clean out some ditches. We're working closely with the highway superintendent, and we really want to get those projects done before winter comes, because then it gets harder to dig, it gets harder to clean out, and snow comes, and everyone's working on snow plowing. Hopefully we have a nice winter this year.
You never know.
And we can do some of those projects.
On the other side of it, we're fortunate to have the businesses we do in Seneca Falls. And we need all the businesses we have and we can get to hopefully take ourselves to the next level where we can be a a place like you and I both remember.
Oh, yeah, we do remember that day.
Yeah.
That's showing our age, though, isn't it, Lou?
Yeah,
It's
a little
true.
bit.
Hey,
Little bit.
somebody pays for this show. Let's check out our great sponsors that make this show possible. We'll come back. Acting as a gateway to the Finger Lakes, Del Lago leverages the natural beauty and unique offerings while enhancing tourism in the region. The casino features 2,000 slot machines, 89 gaming tables, including 12 poker tables, portico by Fabio Viviani, a 2,400-person entertainment center, farmers market buffet. The hotel, spa, and banquet facility will open summer 2017. Cayuga Lake National Bank. Visit Bill Ryan and his team for all of your banking needs. Offices in Union Springs and Aurora, a fine sponsor of this show for over 30 years. DA Liquor on Bridge Street in Seneca Falls. Amy Padula and her team will find the right spirit for you every time. When you stop in, tell Amy the dog sent you. The Gold Hotel welcomes you to come out and enjoy the revitalization of this historic downtown Seneca Falls landmark. Every Wednesday is Ladies' Night with special price drinks and half-priced appetizers. Learn more at thegouldhotel.com. The Omen Theater on William Street in Lyons. See what's playing this week at omentheater.com. Located off New York State Thruway Exit 41, the McGee Diner has earned their reputation as a popular family restaurant, serving country fresh home-cooked meals daily. Stop in for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, and check out their menu at mcgeediner.com. Seneca Metals is an award-winning company that has earned a reputation of going above and beyond to protect the environment and support their community. As an EPA inspector once said, their operation is head and shoulders above the rest. And the Newark Pilots of the Perfect Game Collegiate Baseball League, a minor league team with a major league ballpark. Season ticket packages available at newarkpilots.com. And the Wilson Press in Seneca Falls. My good pal Rich Rickey and his team can handle all of your printing and mailing needs. Visit them online at wpress.com. Cicino's Live, Laugh, Eat Well. It's the Italian way. It's also the Cicino's way. Visit one of their 3 locations, Waterloo, Geneva, and now at Del Lago Resort and Casino. Order online for pickup or delivery at cicinos.com. Welcome back, everybody. It's the Dog with you on a total eclipse day. Don't get me started on that. That was all right. Didn't excite me. I lost my soap opera. I was complaining about that on Facebook today. I'm sorry. It just doesn't excite me. I don't know. Okay, it's a total eclipse. I'd be more excited if I got surf and turf, I guess. That's all right. I had my opinion on that. I just posted another one. Hey, by the way, speaking of Seneca Metals, they have some great events out there. They have the Chimney Bluffs migration hike. One of the most amazing natural phenomena on Earth is the autumn songbird migration. Warblers, vireos, flycatchers, orioles, and tanagers are leaving their breeding grounds in Canada and flying to winter in the tropics. And the Lake Ontario shoreline is a great place to encounter dozens of bird species. Join them on this family-friendly 1-mile hike led by an Audubon naturalist to learn how to identify these songbirds and why the shoreline is a critical stopover habitat for migratory birds. Limited number of binoculars included. If you have them, please bring them. They will have a caravan to Chimney Bluffs. To register, give them a call out at Seneca Metals, 315-539-5624. That's on Saturday, September the 9th. It's a free program at the Seneca Metals Educational Center. By the way, it's a family program type. They recommend ages 9 and over. So check that out. We're back here with Greg Lazzaro and Lou Ferrara representing the Seneca Falls Town Board. And it's amazing after commercial break, we look at the clock and it's 3:25. It's pretty scary, Greg, how time flies when you're having fun. Greg, as you look at going forward, you got some issues to talk about to wrap up the show that you're working on and maybe we haven't discussed? Anything that comes to mind?
I think we want to look at infrastructure very clearly, because if we expect any kind of economic development to take place, we have to be shovel ready. We have to talk to each of our boards, the zoning board, the planning board, and the historical Preservation Board. We have to talk to them to make sure that they're on the same page with us. So when businesses come in, we'll be ready to answer those questions, and we'll be able to give them permission to grow here.
Right.
So the infrastructure problem is a big problem. Continuing our services to the people of Seneca Falls that expect those services is very important here. We have a police force.
Yep.
We have a water and sewer department. Our water, we're just rehabbing the old water tower, and that should be completed, I believe, at the end of September. Mm-hmm. So we're putting some new monies in infrastructure there, and so those will be ready to go. We'll have a new and advanced piping, so when industries want to come in, they'll be ready. Lou, we just had a project, if you want to talk about it a little bit, over on Rumsey Street. I think that'd be interesting.
Go ahead.
Yeah, on the infrastructure issue, that's kind of the issue that made me run.
Right.
I'm pretty proud of it, that there's been a lot of strides in that. Rumsey Street to Miller Street, we installed a new water main.
Nice.
And that's increased the flow to those residents there. Rumsey Street to the Fall Street tracks connected. All customers are on the new main. Spring Street repaired a sewer main and a lateral. Right here, our biggest issue right now is infiltration into our sewage plant. Normal inflow day, we have maybe 1.9, 2 million gallons of inflow. On a rain day, a big storm day, we're upwards of 11 million gallons.
Wow.
And that's people that have their gutters, storm gutters, tied into the sanitary sewer. So we're looking at identifying them. And on this property right here, we found a buried sewer. And the only way we can do that is when the property changes hands, we're allowed to go in and do a dye test. And we found out that the gutters were into the storm sewer. And the new owner of the building is working with us to change that and bring that up to speed. So if you look at a roof the size of this, that's a lot of infiltration from that. The fire hydrants are being serviced and painted. We've installed new pumps and rails at the Noble Road pump stations. Right now, we have an odor issue with the Ballsy Road right at the corner of Ballsy and 5 and 20, the lift station there. It takes 2 days for sewage to get from the casino to our treatment plant. So the 2 days, the sewage comes down 414 and over. Well, by the time it hits there, it's not being flushed. We need to work on that to get more things on that line to flush that out and through them. We're working on that issue right now. We're going to take care of that station. And there's a lot of infrastructure issues that have been dealt with and are going to continue to be dealt with. So we're doing pretty good on that.
Well, that's good. And guys, I hate to say, but we're out of time, but we'd love to have you come back down the road and give us an update in a few months. Go ahead, Greg.
Just one more thing, Harold. And I've said this before on your show.
Yep.
When I moved up here in 1987, I was always amazed that we had a local sportscaster, and that was Mr. Weber. So I always like to make a sports prediction. So the Yankees will be in the World Series this year.
Wow. I don't know when they played against Boston. I'm not so sure. I love Aaron Judge, by the way, but, it's either a home run or a strikeout. He set a dubious record, 37 straight games with a strikeout. And please don't call me Mr. Weber. That's way too old. Call me Dog.
Okay.
That's the dog.
Well, guys, we'll have you come back in a few months, hopefully, and then give us an update. We appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules to join us here on Weber This Week. Thank you, Greg Lazzaro and Lou Ferrara. Look forward to seeing you guys down the road. By the way, upcoming shows before we sign off next week, we are bringing in a couple of guys that these two gentlemen know very well. Matter of fact, they are in the same office area. Stu Peenstra, the chief of police, expected in along with Tim Snyder. We tried to get Tim in before he was tied up. Hopefully Tim can join the chief next week. Then the following week, myself and Jimmy will take Labor Day off. And then on the 11th, we're going to talk about a enterprise and an idea that a young man and another woman, Gabriella, have in mind to put a skate park up in Geneva. It's been quite discussed in the Geneva area. They want to put it near 5 and 20, near the bank there, etc., in the hotel, the Hampton. So we'll talk about that. They're looking forward to putting a public park together in a new location in Geneva. Joe Marone will be my special guest on the 11th. And then on the 18th, an interesting show that I booked just this morning, and that is, I'm always enthused by certain things that I had Megan Peter on many times on this show. She is extremely fit. She works out like a mad woman, and she's our assistant district attorney. of Seneca County. She goes to a place in Penn Yan that touched my heart called CrossFit Submerged. It's in Penn Yan. I used to go to Penn Yan a lot when I was doing play-by-play for football and basketball. So we're going to get the owner, a coach down there, and Megan hopefully will come in if she doesn't have court. They'll talk about their event, their fitness center in Penn Yan. That'll be on the 18th of September. And then we're trying to book in Liz Kamadas, the manager of Abigail's, Lou. That's a famous place for all of us. She is now the manager. She's got new ideas. Not that the mom and all the people didn't, but she's got some new ideas to bring in some different types of crowds, like bringing entertainment on Thursday night. We went and saw and listened to Nate Michaels and had dinner. It was very nice with Gene and Sandy Lopez.
Nice.
So she's got some great ideas. We'll hope to get her on the 25th of September. Then my final act will be 10-2. We just booked the other day I did. Jason Klug, you don't know the name? He is the director of entertainment. He's totally in charge 100% of all the entertainment at Del Lago, the Vine. So Jason Klug, a young guy, got a lot of savvy. We'll hope to get him in here on October 2nd. So we're booked way out, and that's kind of good for me, so I don't have to worry about booking guests for at least a couple more weeks. For my friend Lou Ferrara and my buddy here, Greg Lazzaro, take care, everybody. That's Weber This Week. We'll catch you next week.
Thanks.
Thank you.